The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this month's edition of Wild Wednesday webinar. My name is Paul Kiewit. I'm the Executive Director of MiPPA, and bringing you Wild Wednesday webinar along with TSPPA, OPPA, MiPPA, PPAMidwest, PPAChicago, PPAW, UMAPP, the Arizona Promotional Products Association, RMRPPA, NWPMA, and PMANC. How about that? Does our industry have enough acronyms? I'd like to remind you that today's webinar is worth 1 CAS credit from PPAI if you know your PIN number. At the end of the webinar, you'll receive a survey. If you include the PIN number, I'll submit that to you, to PPAI on your behalf. If you don't know your CAS PIN number, you can get it from your local regional executive director or by checking in with the PPAI Education Department. There is a chat box and a question box on the right side of your screen. If you have questions during David's presentation, feel free to enter them. I'll be monitoring that and interrupting as necessary. Today's presentation is being recorded. When the recording is rendered, I post it to MiPPA's Facebook page, and then I also send it to your local regional executive director if you want to get a copy of the recording of today's webinar. Next month in November, we are very pleased to be having Bobby Lehue. Bobby's part of Common SKU and the Promo Kitchen group, always entertaining, always has significant information about the trends and things affecting our industry. And that's going to be on November 29. Whoa, excuse me, November 29 at the Wild Wednesday webinar, the same time and place. Today's presenter is David Shultz. David's with Distributor Central. They've got a whole bunch of tools to help you engage with your customers in today's digital world. And with that, I'm going to let him take it away. Go ahead, David.
Thanks, Paul. I'm curious if you can actually name off the other 17 regionals that aren't participating today by acronym. You got 10 of them down, so.
Yeah, there's another 7. Well, I probably could. That's the scary thing.
Well, thanks for having me. Originally, our Vice President of Sales, Tiffany Tarr, was scheduled to speak to you guys today, and she completely forgot that she was scheduled to be in California this week. So you guys get me, and I don't know whether that's good or bad, but we'll let you decide when we're done. I appreciate Paul and all the regionals that are involved in this for having me today. As Paul mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about customer engagement in a digital world and what that means. You know, you hear all about these tools out there. You hear all about Amazon and Walmart and all these people that are selling in the digital space now. And while we are advocates of the consultative selling method, and we help educate our users to engage their customers by leveraging digital tools, that's kind of what we're all about. And so I'm going to talk about some of those things today, including websites and blogs and video, and how you can perhaps use some of these tools to more easily and efficiently engage with your customers. Quick little bit about me. I'm the Vice President of Operations at Distributor Central, and I came to Distributor Central back in 2000 when we started writing code, and that's what I actually came here for. But these days we've got a very bright, very talented staff of programmers working for us, so I spend a lot more time out working with our customers and finding out what they need in terms of tools to help them sell better, help them more easily engage with their customers. Oh boy, now it's my turn. Sorry about that. My phone. I'm also on the PPAM board. We're one of the regionals involved in these Wild Wednesday webinars, and I'm on the board of that. I'm on the Professional Development Committee for PPAI, so you know you're getting your CAS, MAS credits today. So if you haven't taken that test yet, and I fall into that boat, I apologize. I'm one of the ones that hasn't yet, so I need to do that as well. And so there's my kids. I'm from Kansas City. I live in Kansas City, and in my off time, I do a lot of work in the philanthropy space with an organization in Kansas City called the Big Slick Celebrity Weekend. So we host a big weekend in Kansas City, raise money for the Cancer Center here in Kansas City, and that's kind of what I spend my off time doing when I'm not working with Distributor Central, except on the weekends when I have to get my creative outlet, and that's playing guitar in a local band. So now you know everything you wanted to know and everything you didn't want to know about me. real quick about Distributor Central. We're one of the service providers in the industry that provides a number of different tools. We have product research and presentation tools, tools for customer and order management. We have a platform for websites and company stores, and we're also heavily involved in integrations in the industry in terms of promo standards and inventory and product data and things like that. That picture on the screen literally is the hard drive that we launched Distributor Central on 20 years ago. And obviously now we are not on that anymore. We're actually fully in the cloud out on Amazon's AWS platform. And today, things have changed significantly in the last 20 years for us and for everybody in the industry. And I'll show you some more points about that later. But we're seeing 8 million searches a month through our platform now, 85 million product views. And when I think about how things have changed in the last 20 years in terms of what people are doing online or how they're leveraging digital tools, it can blow your mind. What I'm going to talk about today, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about engagement. And I'm talking about engagement in terms of engaging with your customers and leveraging some of these digital tools that are available to you. So we'll touch on websites, company stores, social media, video, blogs, email marketing, and then go back and kind of talk a little bit about, how do you use all these in conjunction with each other and analyze whether or not they're effective for you and how to go back and adjust what you're doing in terms of your strategy. Understandably, any of those 5 topics could be an entire day or 2 course. And so we're going to touch very briefly on some of these and fly through this pretty quickly. So as Paul mentioned, if you have questions, feel free to submit them. I know there's a lot of people on the call today, and we're going to go through this pretty quickly. So if you have questions after the fact too, feel free to submit them, and Paul will get those to me. And I'm happy to send this slide deck to anybody who wants it as well. As I mentioned, we're talking about customer engagement. You hear a lot about the word engagement these days, and when you hear it, people are a lot of times referring to social engagement. How many likes, how many shares, things like that. How are my social media posts being shared and engaged with by my customers? But we're really going back to the basics and talking about why we engage. People, as you've heard, I'm sure a million times, they buy from someone they know, they like, and they trust. And some of these tools that we're going to talk about today can help people know you, they can help them like you, and they can help them trust you. And so they can all be ways that you can more efficiently work with your customers. Nobody wants to be this guy, of course. So these are tools that you can use to help your customers more easily interact with you. Real quickly, because this has come up a couple times in the last week, I wanted to touch on this. I was stepping onto an airplane to come home from the North American Leadership Conference and the PPAI Technology Summit back at the end of August. And this press release went out that Walmart had entered the promotional products industry. And my social media feeds were full of nothing else but this for about 10 hours. And it's still going on, as I've heard that these flyers are actually showing up in the value packs and people's mails and everything else. But it's really not a whole lot different than when we heard Amazon had entered the promotional products industry. And, I was curious, so I started digging. And I actually, being the techie guy that I am, I started backtracking the IP address that this website was assigned to. And sure enough, I found another site, if you see the site next to it, that looked nearly identical to the Walmart promo shop. The same code, the same images, the same layout, everything. So when I really dug into it, it turns out that this site was actually launched by a distributor in the industry that, they're probably a very savvy distributor who probably approached Walmart and said, why don't we launch a customizable branded product site with your name on it, presumably give them a cutback or however that works. I don't really know. So it wasn't necessarily Walmart deciding they wanted to sell promotional products per se. It was more along the lines of somebody in this industry working with Walmart to leverage their brand for their promotional product site. I started digging into the pricing, because the first thing I heard was, the same thing I hear when people talk about Amazon or 4imprint. It's like, I can't compete because I can't sell at the prices they're selling at. And while that may be true with some of the 4imprints or the other bigger companies that get better volume discounts than we as a small distributor might get, that is true. But when I looked at the pricing on this Walmart site, you can see this particular bag here sells from $18, $26 at a quantity of 50. They sell for $25. This is a website hosted on the Distributor Central platform for a distributor that has no negotiated EQP or anything with the suppliers. This is just standard advertised retail pricing. So you can see that that bag, it's a $25 bag, is only $1 more in the advertised retail price than somebody can buy it for on the Walmart promo shop site. And so my point in all of that is just to say, can you provide $1 worth of value between somebody who's going to go purchase on the Walmart site versus one of your customers who you're working with, who you're engaging with? Can you find that $1 in value in terms of your expertise, in terms of branding and marketing and your creativity and everything else? And I think we all know the answer to that is yes. That's why the distributor channel exists, is to provide that value. Something else very interesting I saw just this week, Jason Noakes, our president, was back in Arkansas visiting his parents for the weekend and came across a copy of PPB that they did an article about him in. And here is the cover story: will distributors be squeezed out of the buying process? And what was fascinating about this was I looked at it initially and thought, yeah, I could see that being a lead article this month in PPB. But when you look at it a little closer, look at the date. It was the cover of the November 2000 PPB magazine. So this discussion about distributors being squeezed out of the buying process, presumably due to technology and consolidation and whatever else might be, has been going on for 17 years. And the distributor channel is still strong and alive and doing well. It just happens to be that we are leveraging more of these digital tools lately and have had to find other ways to compete with some of the pure internet resellers. One really interesting graph in that article, by the way, in 2000, figure number 4, has the internet made it easier or more difficult to place orders and receive service from a promotional products distributor? If you look at that bar over on the right, 37% of the people responded, I have not used it. And I don't know whether that means they haven't used the internet or they haven't used a distributor's website or a supplier's website, but that number is pretty interesting. And you got to imagine if this same graph were in PPB today, that number would be virtually zero. Everybody's gone to a distributor or a supplier website or one of these aggregated sites out there. So it was just an interesting article I thought you guys would like. Really what it all boils down to, Roy Spence, who is an advertising genius out of Texas, who did some of the early campaigns for Walmart, for Southwest Airlines, people like that. He spoke at NALC this year, and one of the lines that really resonated with people that I remember is, we need to ladder up and stop selling products and start selling purpose-inspired solutions. And I thought that was a really good prelude to leveraging some of these tools and spending more of your time coming up with purpose-inspired solutions and working with your customers. I always throw a little trivia in here to make sure everybody's awake. Anybody who has taken the CAS and MAS test, you probably already know the answer to this, but yes, according to our records, and I'm sure there are some that were hundreds or even thousands of years ago, the first promotional product in the industry was a campaign button for George Washington back in 1789 when he was running for president. These days, as we all know, things have changed significantly, and the promotional products avenue of marketing in general is a very significant part of the advertising industry in general. 8 out of 10 consumers own a promotional product. 88% of people that receive a promotional product can recall the advertiser. They're very effective products, and so this piece of the industry is not going away, whether people are advertising it on the internet or selling it on the internet, or they're walking into somebody's office with paper catalogs or an iPad with a digital catalog. That part of what makes this industry so successful is not changing. What's changing is the avenues that we have to market ourselves and get ourselves in front of customers. And if you go back in time in history, there were a lot of changes over a large number of years, and the biggest amount of change is in the most recent years. But if you go back to the 1800s, you see posters being used. There were billboard rentals came along later in the 1800s. In the 1920s, you started to see radio advertising, and then television advertising came along a little bit later. In the 50s, you saw the oh-so-loved telemarketing that we still get today. In fact, it's my cell phone sitting on my desk buzzing with a number I don't recognize, so who knows what they're trying to sell me. In the 70s, you saw some early e-commerce starting to happen, and not so much e-commerce as in people purchasing on websites, but in terms of orders and things being processed electronically between mostly business-to-business type situations. And then in the 90s, you started to see the first customer relationship management tools, Google, YouTube, things like that. And the 2000s, finally, you started to see the social media sites come into play that ultimately became, excuse me, yet another marketing avenue for us all to leverage. So today, how many of these tools are out there for you guys to use? Well, as of last March or last May, here is an infographic that shows every marketing technology platform out there in the industry. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands of them. Every day it seems like there's a new one. Most of us focus, at least if you're looking at this chart, and I realize you can't read any of that, but those companies on there who have branded themselves well with a logo, you might see those in there. I can see Salesforce and Adobe and things like that. You know, most of us these days are working in the social area in the middle there. For our company, we work a lot in the data and the management side. And then if you're hosting an e-commerce platform or you're using social media or other channels, you may be working in some of these other platforms as well. But as you can imagine, to wrap your mind around all of the tools that are out there to help you can make your head hurt some days. So really what we're looking at is how do you narrow this down and pick a few of these to get started with, particularly if you haven't used any of them at all. And before we get into the real digital ones, of course, don't forget, because I know some people hate this tool, but the number one tool to engage your customers, digital or analog, is still going to be the phone. And sometimes a phone can save 10 emails or social media posts or whatever it might be. Okay, so to dive in, let's talk a little bit about websites and company stores first. And by the way, I know Paul mentioned that Bobby Lehue is going to be speaking on this series next month. He's actually doing one on company stores today at I want to say it's at 1 p.m. Central Time. It's one of PPAI's webinars. So I'm going to touch on company stores really quickly, but if you want a more in-depth overview of whether or not a company store makes sense and how to get started, you know, when you jump off the phone here, take a 30-minute break and jump back on the phone with his webinar, or tune back in next month to hear him talk. So those of you who have been around a while, like I have, you may have at one point in time had a website that looks like this. And fortunately, our website never actually looked like this. We did launch this as a joke on April 1st one day, just for the day. But you get what I'm saying. Websites, when they first came out, weren't all that user-friendly. They had a lot of blinking fonts and, you know, animated fire GIFs and things like that. And they just, you know, they weren't designed to provide the kind of user experience that we're used to today. What you see today in the industry is a wide variety of websites. And, you know, in the end, they're all just a website. You know, they are a system to serve up content that sits on a database, perhaps. But you see different types of websites, and we treat them all kind of differently. We see supplier websites, distributor websites. You see niche sites that focus on a particular industry or vertical or a product type. And then, of course, we see program sites and company stores. The one thing that they're starting to all have in common these days, and if yours doesn't yet, it's certainly time to look at it, is that they are responsive. And by responsive, I mean mobile friendly as well, but those terms do differ a little bit. Responsive simply means that you build one website and it adapts to the platform on which your customer is viewing it. That was a big change, I know, for our platform a couple of years ago. People were starting to say, hey, my customers are browsing my site on their websites, or I'm standing in a trade show booth and I want to pull up a product from a supplier while I'm thinking about it and bookmark it for later. And so we built an entirely new system that's all 100% responsive, works on all different platforms, and seamlessly people can transition between desktop and tablet and phone. In the old days, we would actually build two entirely separate websites, and we had some creative code in the background that could sense whether your user was on a phone or a desktop, and then we would port them over to a mobile-friendly website that was essentially just a website designed very skinny and designed for a mobile device. So fortunately, those days are pretty much gone, and we can develop one site now that responds to all different types of platforms. And anybody out there who still doesn't think that's important, or you don't think your customers are doing that, if you look at some of the data from the past few years, mobile traffic, overall mobile traffic on the internet exceeded desktop traffic back in 2014. So that's 3 years ago. And those numbers continue to rise. To put that in a little bit different perspective, let's think about a toothbrush for a minute. How many people on the planet own a toothbrush? I saw these numbers in a presentation at NALC too, and it was a little surprising. There are 3.5 billion people on the planet that own a toothbrush. How many people do you think own a telephone? Well, that number's somewhere in the range of 4 billion, and that, of course, includes people that may own 2 phones or whatever it might be. But the point of this was the fact that there are more telephones on the planet, more internet-enabled telephones on the planet than there are toothbrushes. And that's, I know, a sad commentary, but it is true. And so to have your solutions available via a mobile device is extremely important these days, and it's only going more in that direction as the e-commerce side, the ability to configure and order a product on a mobile device, continues to become easier and easier as well. A few things that you can do to kind of think about, at least if you're developing a new website, just a few very basic things about what can make an effective website. The distributors and suppliers we work with that seem to have a lot of success with their websites are websites that aren't purely product-based. You know, you want to have story. You want to tell your story. You know, storytelling, as Bobby Leahy is a big fan of talking about, storytelling is what's going to differentiate you from your customers, not just having a fancy, shiny website with a lot of blinking buttons and products. So, you know, leverage your website and tell your story. Tell why you're special. I routinely find myself going to the About Us page of websites to learn more about a company and what they do and why they exist and what they do in the charitable space, what they're doing in their communities. Things like that are important to me, and I'm by no means a millennial, but studies have shown that the millennials care even more and more about this. So that is something very important to have on your website. Case studies, client recommendations, all of those things, extremely important and can be very effective in terms of driving business to you. I can't remember the last business that I did business with without first going to their website and their social media channels to check out what they do, how they do it, why they do it before I did business with them. So good things to have on your website. Contact information, of course. I will tell you that at one point in time, we took our phone number off the website to try and eliminate calls to our technical support division, and we got flamed all over the place for doing that. So have your phone number on your website, along with email and a contact form and all of that good stuff, of course. But you know, make it easy for somebody to get in touch with you if they need to. And then, of course, having product search as a component. And I say as a component because your website doesn't have to be solely a product research platform, but it needs to have that capability on it and be easy to use and make it easy for your customers to find a product, so they're not looking at 25,000 different coffee mugs if they're just trying to find, you know, a blue coffee mug. And any of the platforms out there in the industry have product search as a component, and then beyond that, kind of the rest in terms of client recommendations and case studies and things like that. That's all up to you. And there are plenty of different solutions out there that have templates to start with, or they offer custom design services or whatever it might be. So take a look around and see what might work for you. And then that last bullet point there always, of course, is important, especially if you are trying to do anything in terms of search engine optimization or actually doing business online as a key part of your value proposition. If you're just going into people's offices or you're just working one-on-one with clients, having your website e-commerce enabled and SEO enabled is not critical, but still important. And you know, I know a lot of distributors that never thought they would sell online, who now for them that has become a good portion of their income is orders that come through Google. So something to think about, keeping fresh content on your site. In terms of the technical side, we already talked about responsive. Make sure that your sites can be browsed on any sort of device. Make sure that the product search is robust, easy to use, has a lot of different filtration options in terms of being able to filter by product categories or colors or pricing or any of those things. Social integration and sharing tools can be very effective. I see a lot of people sharing products on the social media channels, and you know, that it's generating a lot of business for them. They've got some sort of special going on, or there's a new unique product. For a while, my Facebook page was full of nothing but fidget spinners. Fortunately, that's kind of died off and we've moved on. And but you get the idea. You know, the ability to very quickly and easily share products across your different social channels can be a very effective way of getting products in front of your customers or ideas in front of your customers. Cost transparency is a big one. If I go to a site and I find a product I like and I put it in my cart and I start to check out, and then I get a message at the end that says, hey, there's going to be some setup charges to this, or we don't know what shipping is yet, we'll tell you later when we invoice you, I'm going to go to the next site. So I want to know when I check out on somebody's site, all the run charges, the setup charges, the shipping charges, if there's proof charges, all of those things should be on the site and very transparent, or somebody's going to go on to the next site. That's what we're seeing, and it's been that way for a while now, but even more so as the e-commerce piece of this comes into play, that becomes extremely important. Virtual sampling and the ability for your customers to upload a logo and see it on a product is still very important to a lot of people in our industry. They want their customers to very quickly and easily envision those products with their logo on it. So giving them a tool to upload their logo and have it apply to the products. Some platforms have it, some don't, but it can be an effective way to give your site an edge compared to the competition. And lastly, if they're ready to buy, why not allow them to do it right then and there without picking up the phone? I know several distributors who the bulk of their orders that come through their site now are reorders. So a customer can log on to the site. If they're ordering calendars at the same time every year, they can simply go onto the site, log into their account and say, yep, reorder, same thing for next year. And it makes it very easy and saves you putting together a proposal or a quote or calling them or bugging them with direct mail pieces to do a reorder. So the reorder function is just a piece of it too, but there are a lot of people getting traffic now from basic searches on Google and the other search engines that they didn't solicit. They're not people they've worked with before, but they are starting to get orders and in some cases capturing those customers and working with them into the future. So having an e-commerce enabled site is something to take a look at if you want to get into that space. I threw a couple of sites in here that you've all heard about. We've all heard about 4imprint. I think they did somewhere upwards of 600 million in 2016. So obviously a very impactful site in our industry that's doing a ton of business. And if you look at the site, you're thinking to yourself, well, it's, you know, there's nothing really fancy about it. It's pretty basic, pretty clean, but they've made it very frictionless, so to speak. You know, they have a phone number you can call, or you can order directly online. It's very easy to upload a logo and check out. They have low minimums, and obviously they have negotiated very good pricing with their vendors, and they have a lot of people on staff to handhold if where needed. They advertise a lot of specials on their homepage. They're continually rotating out the specials that are on their homepage to entice traffic. And one thing that's very important that makes it very difficult to compete with companies this large is they spend a ton of money on Google for AdWord campaigns. So if you're doing searches for promotional products on Google, the chances of you seeing a 4imprint page come up are very high because they're spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on AdWords every month. And so that's not something that the average distributor can compete with. So we need to look at other ways to compete if we want to sell online, and in terms of more niche categories and things like that we can be successful in. Branders is another one, always does a really good job of keeping the homepage up to date. They've got daily deals. I guarantee you the day fidget spinners showed up in our market, that ad was on their homepage. So they're very good about keeping content updated. You can see very visible phone number, easy way to log in, track orders, things like that. These are all pretty standard across most any platform these days that you'll see out there in the industry. So I just want to point out a few things about those. In terms of the search, I talked a little bit about having a robust, easy to use search. If you look at, and this happens to be a site we host, this is just a demo site, but I just wanted to show you some of the faceted searching and filtering that you're seeing on sites more these days. The ability to go in and search by keyword, price range, production time, minimum quantity. You can drill in by category. In this case, you can search by color if you want to filter the search results down by color. This is similar to what Amazon does. They call it faceted searching. So you can, faceted simply means I can apply multiple filters after I've already done a search to further refine the search. So something you're seeing more searches do these days that's pretty important in terms of having a robust, easy to use search on your site. In terms of some of the functionality that I mentioned earlier, the social sharing tools, you see these everywhere. They're just those buttons on the page. So if I'm a customer on this site, I can click on that tweet button and share that button to my Twitter feed very instantly. Share it with friends, colleagues. If we're looking at insulated mugs that we want to get for our staff, it's an easy way to very quickly send them a picture and information about the product. Other things we talked about, sales tools, having the ability for somebody to print out a sales sheet for that product. You see the inventory button down there. I'll show you that in a second. Over on the right-hand side, you've got a number of different buttons. I can email this product to a colleague. I can very quickly click a button to get a shipping estimate if I want to know what it's going to cost to ship to various places on various service types, whether it's 3-day, 2-day, whatever it might be. A form where I can request more information, and then it has all the pricing down below as well as the setup charges involved, so I know exactly what that's going to cost. The inventory button down there fires off a little pop-up modal where I can actually see the real-time inventory of these products. In this case, it's a tumbler from Starline, and if you've heard anybody mention promo standards, it's basically an initiative out there in the industry to standardize the way that we all pass data back and forth, and that includes not just distributors and suppliers, but also the service providers out there in the industry. So we've integrated with promo standards. A lot of the big distributors have done it. The suppliers are all starting to get on board as well. So if you go look at a product in our database, or your customer views this product on your website, in real time, this is going back and talking to Starline servers and pulling back the real-time inventory that's sitting on the shelf in their warehouse. So you know whether that product is in stock, and if not, you can look at other products if need be. Saves a lot of phone calls. I've had the folks at Starline tell me that half their calls for a while coming in were because of inventory, questions about whether something was in stock, and doing this has eliminated a good chunk of those calls. So everybody has more time to spend on other more important things than answering inventory questions. We talked about the virtual sampling and the ability to upload a logo and see what it looks like on a catalog or on any product on your website. This is just a quick example of that. If you go to the site, it pops up a little form where I can type in my company name, or I can upload a logo, and once I do that, it overlays that logo on every product on the site. It's a little bit newer technology than some of the other things that I've been showing you so far, so it's just now kind of starting to make its way to some of the platforms out there that I think is going to be something that you're going to start seeing on more sites over the course of the next year. Having a simplified checkout, making it very easy for somebody to pick a product, see the exact prices, and check out and know exactly what it's going to cost. So this is just a quick example of that, making it as easy as possible with as few pages as possible to get from start to finish and configuring an order. All important things on the technical side if you want to do business online. The sharing tools I mentioned, where I start to see that a lot, it's interesting when you go to these trade shows and you see people in the booth pulling up a product. They're standing in a supplier's booth and they pull up that supplier's website or one of the aggregated sites on their phone, and they can very quickly either save it to a list or email it to themselves or email it to a customer that has been asking about a particular product. So those tools work really, really well on mobile too when you're in the field. And it'll very quickly and easily send you or your client or whomever it might be an email. An interesting thing that we're starting to see, I don't know if any of you has one of these in your house yet, that is the Google, or the Amazon Alexa unit, the Echo device. Sorry, the Alexa on my desk is getting ready to talk to me. But one of the things that they talked about at the North American Leadership Conference was, what is the next paradigm shift going to be? And we had mobile came out a few years back, and that was a major paradigm shift for us. Everybody started talking to that portable Google machine, as Bill Petrie likes to call it, in their pocket. So now that you've got this device in your pocket that you can do searches on and pull up things, everybody was kind of wondering what the next shift is going to be. And everybody uses Siri or whatever the similarly configured thing is on an Android device, and they've started talking to these things. And so we have started doing some work with the Alexa device in terms of tying it into our search. And we did a demo at the Tech Summit last year where I simply asked Alexa to send me some tech products. She went out, she's configured into our search now. I say she, I'm speaking hypothetically, she could be a he as well. So Alexa went in, tapped into our search, found products, and instantly emailed it to everybody sitting in the room. And that took me 2 seconds to do. Not write the code, that took a lot longer. But to do this to find products related to the Tech Summit and email it to everybody in the room took about 2 seconds to do. So it's interesting to see, and I just this week have started seeing commercials for the new Alexa unit that has a screen on it. So who knows how that's going to impact this. You're going to see people start talking to it to do searches in their kitchens, and the screen itself is just going to pull up products on the screen. So pretty fascinating thing in terms of sharing products and looking for products and how we interact with these devices as we go forward. I always get questions about company stores when I've done this presentation in the past, so I'm going to throw a few slides in here quickly to talk about those, because it has been a hot button item now for the past year, and almost every distributor we talk to asks whether a company store makes sense for their clients, and the answer is always a maybe. And I'm going to talk real briefly about what they are and whether or not they make sense. And there's a number of different flavors of company stores. You've got a run-of-the-mill company store that just offers branded products for the employees of a particular organization. You have reward stores where employees can log in and buy things based on points they've earned. Spirit and uniform fulfillment programs. You see a lot of these short-term flash sale type stores, which could be spirit wear for your kid's school or whatever it might be. And then another way they differ in terms of fulfilling the products is some are drop ship, where the orders are placed at the end of the month, sent to the supplier, and the supplier fulfills them. In other cases, these are all pre-decorated products that are warehoused and fulfilled out of some facility. So how do you know if your client is ready? If you have a client who's doing a ton of small orders, if they're doing repeat orders, if you are having to service their orders with products from multiple vendors, they need quick turnaround, they want to have the ability to log in and run reports across what their employees are ordering, things like that. These are things that might make sense to start looking at putting up a company store for them. It could save you a significant amount of time in terms of the service you're providing them, in terms of quotes, proposals, things like that, and managing those orders if they were to have a company store. There's a number of benefits. It provides one-stop shopping. They don't have to call you. They don't have to go to your website. They have their own site now where they can see the specific products that you have designed for them, worked with them in conjunction to pick out. Like I said, everything these days you're seeing, for the most part, I know there are still platforms that are not responsive or mobile friendly, but for the most part they are. So employees at these companies can simply pull up their internal catalog on their phone. It can be behind their own firewall, it can be on your site, wherever it is, and order products very quickly and easily. It's a great way to be able to support multiple buildings, multiple offices, multiple divisions, and it could save a ton of time for both you and them. Another thing it could allow you to do is to basically manage the brand for that company. I have seen a distributor go into a major corporation who is currently buying from 20 or 30 different distributors across the country and say, you know what, why don't we put up the store? I'll manage all your apparel, all your hard goods, everything. We'll do it all through this one site. And they have become basically the exclusive distributor for all branded merchandise for that company. So it is a great thing to have in your toolbox when you go in to pitch a new company. And it really sells on your behalf. It doesn't require that you're continuously calling or quoting these employees of these corporations if you have a site up that can provide ongoing revenue and make it very quick, simple, and easy for these people to order. As a quick example, let me talk about a real estate office real quick. This was an actual customer who was servicing a real estate company across a 3-state regional area. They had 20 different offices. They had 3 buyers in each office, and she was literally creating a quote for these different buyers every month. And so we kind of sat down and said, well, look, if you're spending 20 minutes to write up a quote for a couple products for person in office 1, and then you do the same thing for the next office and the same thing for the next office, and you sit down and look at the numbers, it's basically costing you about $12,000 of your time a year if you take some of these assumptions into consideration, because she was worried about the cost of putting up a company store. And obviously the cost of doing that can be all over the map in terms of setup and design and maintenance and everything else. But I guarantee you it doesn't cost you $12,000 a year to run a basic company store. So we could save a ton of time and money by doing this. There are some setup and design costs in some cases. Other cases, there are basic templates that you can just pick and choose from. Other platforms, you can create a design that you really like once, and then you can spawn that off into multiple stores, which is what we did for her. She has one design now that she uses for all her company stores, and when she brings on a new client, you basically change out the color scheme, the product selection, the logo, and it's ready to go. There is some time involved in the product data setup. If you are doing pre-decorated items, you kind of have to sit down and figure out your pricing and eliminate some of the additional options. If I were to order this shirt from one of the suppliers, for example, there might be a number of options I have to pick and choose. But me, on my company store, all they have to choose is size. They don't get to choose color. They don't get to choose poly bagging or whatever it might be. So there is a little bit of time typically spent in the data setup. Obviously, if you're allowing employees to pay by credit card, there are credit card fees involved, so you have to take that into consideration. And then in terms of inventory and fulfillment, you have to take into consideration whether you're inventorying these products, you're fulfilling them, you're having a fulfillment center do them, or they're drop ship type situations. The particular store I was just talking about, where it was a hospital, those orders all come in over the course of a month, and then the order is sent off to the supplier, and the supplier ships them all out at one time. So there is no inventorying or warehouse fulfillment involved in that particular case. They're all just drop shipped from the supplier. And there are some basic costs in terms of maintenance, support, reporting, things like that. Certainly there are times where they don't make sense. If a customer requires, and I've seen, this is no joke, I have seen RFPs from somebody that are 20 plus pages long on the requirements if you were to put up a company store for them. They may have very, very specific PCI compliance, which is banking industry compliancy. If they're in the healthcare industry, there may be HIPAA issues involved. There can be all kinds of things involved. And so you would have to go out and build a full-blown custom website from scratch, and it can cost a lot of money to do it. So in those cases, it may not make sense. If the customer wants you to own the inventory, sometimes that's something to think about. If it's, you don't want to be stuck with thousands of dollars worth of inventory that doesn't sell. If they demand margins that are too tight, or, if the volume is just insufficient, if they just don't buy enough from you for it to make sense. That said, with some of these new platforms, the cost to put up a website or a company store can be extremely low. So I have seen people do a basic spiritware store for their kids' school because the costs of setting it up and maintaining it are virtually nothing, but it saves them the time of creating the flyers and sending them around to all the parents to take the orders and things like that. So just something to talk about. And if you need to talk about those, contact us or one of the other vendors, and we're happy to walk you through that process and see if it makes sense. Okay, enough about company stores. Like I said, if you want to talk about those or hear more in detail, jump on Bobby's presentation at 1 Central today, and he'll go into even more detail on that. Let's talk real quickly about video, because video has become like the new thing. Well, not new. It's not new. I'm not saying it's new, but you're seeing more and more videos being used on supplier and distributor websites in a variety of ways. You see product videos, educational videos, fun videos. This video here from A+ Wine is a combination of all of those. They're advertising their product, they are teaching you about their brand, and they're having fun with it. It was well done. They obviously paid somebody to produce that, and so they spent some money on that. But it was a well done video. And there's no question that video can be very effective in terms of marketing yourself or in terms of driving traffic to your website if that's what you're after. YouTube, believe it or not, is the second largest search engine on the planet. There are more searches done on YouTube after Google than any of the other search engines. I mean, think about it. How many times have you wanted to learn about a product or how to do something? I was trying to rewire a TV through the wall the other day, and it's like, well, I don't know where to put these wires on this outlet, and I don't want to burn the house down. So you go to Google or you go to YouTube, you find the video to figure out what to do. And the same applies in our industry. There's 400 hours of video being uploaded every minute on YouTube. And as of recent numbers I looked at, there were 3 billion searches a month being done and 6 billion videos being watched. But what's also striking is if you look at some of the numbers of retention on a site, one study said that if your site is just all text-based, you're going to have a 20% retention rate, whereas if you have video on your site, 70% of the videos will stick around to watch the video and they'll stay longer. So it's pretty important stuff. I saw a presentation at PPAI's Leadership Development Workshop last week on video, and they said that they were talking about length of video, which was interesting too. 56% of the videos in the last 2 years are less than 2 minutes. So they don't have to be long. In fact, the short ones do better. A 90-second video will see a 53% retention. A 30-minute video will see a 10% retention. And 37% of people will watch it all the way to the end. So put the good content in the beginning or the middle. Like I said, don't be afraid to have fun. We've done some goofy, funny videos in the past. Well, they were funny to us maybe, but not everybody else. But we did a couple fun videos leading up to PPAI's Expo a few years ago. And, I saw a quote from Kirby Hasseman the next day that said, on this video, I learned a lot from Distributor Central about what they do that I didn't know before, but I also learned that I want to party with Dave. So, hey, there you go. And we did go have a drink in Las Vegas. So many different ways to do video, and obviously different budgets as well. What you're seeing over on the right-hand side of that screen, literally that is a green sheet hung up in the basement of my house. And, if you know us, we are a small company and we have our hands in everything. So while I might be writing code or talking to you guys or out visiting a client, yep, sometimes I'm in my basement helping do some video content for the company as well. You can spend as little or as much of this on as you want. Typically when we're in the field now, and if I interview somebody in the field, I'm using my iPhone to record that video. And I may use a separate microphone to get cleaner audio than using the iPhone's microphone, but it's really easy to do. And the iPhone and other cameras take incredibly good video for what we're doing on social media these days. That workshop last week at LDW, they had us download and install an app called InShot, if you want to look that up. And we literally we had 15 minutes to write a script, shoot a video, multiple clips, edit them together, and put music to it in this app on our phones without using any laptops or anything. So the InShot app is an interesting little app for doing quick one-off little videos where you can tie multiple clips together and add music and effects and things like that in the field. So something to check out. There's a ton of shareable content and libraries out there, especially in terms of when it comes to music and audio. You got to be really careful about what you add to your videos if it's going to be something used in a corporate fashion or a marketing fashion. You have to worry about license considerations and things like that. But there are a lot of libraries out there where you can buy a subscription, download music that you are then able to use in your videos. I just threw this one in here real quick to show you. It's blinking really crazy on my screen, but hopefully you can see it. But this is the one I shot in front of that $2 green screen in front of my basement. Did a little bit of editing in Adobe Premiere and After Effects, and that video has thousands of views already. So it can be very effective and done very easily. Social media. Hopefully you guys are all on one social media channel or another soon, and there are tons out there and a number of reasons to go social. It's a great way to reach out to customers. I mean, PPAI, you see their site over on the left, their Facebook page. They do a really good job of getting their research and their creative assets out there for distributors in the industry to use to engage with their distributors. So something to check out there. It's a great way to get new customers, and it's a great way to engage with existing customers. It's a great place to get referrals and recommendations. If any of you have not tapped into the Promotional Products Professionals Facebook group out there yet, it's something to take a look at. And yes, we know there's a lot of arguing and bickering that goes on there from time to time. But if you ignore all that and dig into some of the content that's in there, there's some really good stuff on there in terms of people needing help finding products or coming up with ideas for particular clients. And you see a lot of people talking to each other and coming up with great ideas. It's also a great place to send people in terms of having a call to action. If you're trying to get people to sign up for your email list or go to your website, you can send them to your social media pages as a landing page and then have links to your sign-up forms, things like that. And as I mentioned, it's a great way to show them your social side. You can do more on the fun side, so to speak, on social media channels than you can on your website, let's say, or even in your email marketing, perhaps. And then if you've ever heard Dana Zezzo speak, the number one reason he says for salespeople to go social is to warm up your cold calls. And I agree with that because anytime that I'm going to call somebody, or I can see I can go to their Facebook page or their social media channels and get a little bit of better feel about them, what they're doing and what they're like before I give them a call. There's a number of different channels out there, and where you go and where you spend your time really depends on where your customers are. We have a ton of followers on Facebook, slightly fewer on Twitter, and then we have a handful on LinkedIn at the moment, but LinkedIn is one that's growing, as is Instagram. We see our Instagram followers growing over the last year as well, probably faster than some of the other channels. So find out where your customers are. And if you can't afford to spend the time to be on all of these channels all the time, and there are some ways to aggregate these efforts I'll talk about here quickly in a second, but find out where your customers are and focus your time there. Snapchat, won't talk about that one a whole lot, but we use the filters sometimes at events, and those are great. We haven't really found a really powerful way of using it for marketing or engaging our customers, but the filters can be kind of fun if you're doing events. Blogging is another one, and blogs work really well in terms of driving people to your website, but it's also a great place to tell your story. And as I mentioned earlier, storytelling is extremely important these days in terms of differentiating yourself from the competition. So use your blog to tell your story and use it to educate. It's a great way for people to read about you and gain some confidence in your abilities to meet their needs in terms of helping them with their marketing efforts. And in the same way, it builds credibility. And it's very effective too. It is one of the best ways to drive traffic to your website. A lot of people are using their blogs in terms of as a key piece of their SEO functionality and efforts. So it's something to look at. If you enjoy writing, or you enjoy leveraging some of the shared resources out there to share articles, which is easy to do as well. You don't have to be the person that generates all of this content. You can share a lot of really great content that's out there now. And Bill, if any of you guys know Bill, he is religious about posting frequently. Of course, he's working a lot more these days on Promo Corner projects than his own, so he doesn't post quite as often as he used to. But when he was posting routinely on Brandivate, the company that he sold to Promo Corner, he basically said, "I'm going to post every Monday and Wednesday without fail." And he would do it whether he was on an airplane or in a hotel or wherever he was. Those posts would go out. So posting regularly is something extremely important if you decide that you want to blog. As I mentioned, it's a great way to drive traffic to your website. So it's great for SEO, search engine optimization. And you can promote your blog posts on social media, then drive the traffic to your website. So as you can see, these all kind of come together in a unified marketing effort. He goes by the 20-80 rule. So 80% of his blog posts were basically to build readership, to provide good content, educational content that helps build confidence in his abilities. And then the other 20% was more on the selling side. So everything you do doesn't need to be and shouldn't be selling. I'm going to skip over a couple of these just because we're running short on time and I'm going a little long. But let's talk about email marketing for a second. I have a lot of people come up to me and say, "Well, isn't email marketing dead?" And my answer is no, it's not. We see one of the highest returns on our investment in email marketing. I mean, it's very inexpensive to do, particularly if you're a small distributor. There are a number of platforms out there that you can leverage for free or very little cost that allow you to build very nice looking, robust emails to send to your customers. If you look at some of the stats out there, if somebody goes to your website and signs up and they have an option to choose whether they want to be contacted via email or phone, 72% are going to say they want email. 91% of people who do business with you want information from you if you're running specials or things like that. And as I said, the ROI is a no-brainer. The latest stats showed that these were more in the B2B world, but in the B2C world, this applies as well. Or I'm sorry, the other way around. $36 for every dollar spent on email marketing. And in the B2C world, 23% of all sales were attributed to email marketing. And one of the reasons that is because we consider email marketing to be very sticky. If I get an email that has an offer that I'm interested in, but I don't have time to deal with it right now, I put it in a folder that comes back up in my feed like tomorrow, so I can look at it tomorrow. So it's a real easy way to have something in front of somebody that they can keep or put in a folder that they check out a few days later. Whereas on social media, my post may drop off your feed in a day and you may never see it again. A few tips on email marketing. If you're a small distributor and you're looking for a free tool to do this, MailChimp is a great one. You can have a mail list up to 2,000 people that's free, and above that, it's very reasonable. They have a very nice tool to design your emails to make very nice robust, responsive, mobile-friendly emails to send out to your customers. You know, and have friendly and helpful content. You're trying to have a conversation with your customers, not just sell to them. So the way that you write the email is also very important to kind of create this one-on-one type of ability, and one-on-one in terms of content, but these tools also allow you to actually make the email appear like it is one-on-one. And by that, I mean you can put a variable in there where the person's first name comes up at the beginning of the email that says, "Hey Dave, check this out. I've got a special going this week on these products." So very easy to do. Subject lines and call to action. If you have not heard of the second subject line, we all know subject lines are important to get you to open an email. There is a second subject line too that some people don't even know about. If you look at these two examples to the right, the subject line is "take a bite out of these deals." This is a supplier who did some email marketing advertising through us, and they sent out the first one, and it just, you know, underneath the subject line, I saw "view offer online, view all offers." Well, that's not too exciting. But when they leveraged that second subject line, which is essentially the first line of text in the body of an email that said 10% off these new products, that got them, that got basically 15% more people opened that second email than the first one. So that second subject line can be extremely effective, something to think about. Last thing on the list there, retargeting and list curation. A lot of the email providers have a lot of really great tools in terms of, once I send out an email and these 10% of the people clicked on a certain link, I can take those 10% of the people, throw them into another list, and send them a follow-up email about that particular product or service. So that's what kind of retargeting and list curation is. One no-no, please don't send mass emails to all your customers from Outlook or Gmail. You will get blocked pretty darn quickly through some of the spam gatekeepers out there. Use one of the tools out there that are designed to send mass emails. Okay, so we talked real quickly about websites, email marketing, social media, and blogging and video. How do we bring it all together? What you're trying to do is figure out what works, what doesn't work, evaluate what you're doing on your website and social media, email marketing, and basically adjust what you're doing. For some of these tools, it's real easy. If you're looking at your website traffic, for example, if you don't have a Google Analytics account, go out and get one. They're free. We can tie it to your site, or whatever platform you use, you can tie it to your site. So if I am doing a email marketing campaign and I want to see if anybody went to my website after I did it, I go into Google Analytics and I can see the traffic on my site after I sent out that email blast. You can do this for specific pages. You can have unique landing pages for all your email blasts and see which ones are generating the most visits. Analytics has a real-time tool as well. This is a little creepy if you think about it, but I can look at our website right this second and see how many people are on each page. I can't see them, don't worry, but I can see what they're doing and what pages they're going to. So get a Google Analytics account if you don't have it, and then take some time to play around in there. I'm not going to dive into SEO real deeply because it can be an entire class in and of itself. If you want a really quick primer on SEO, go out to Google and search for their search engine optimization starter guide. It's like a little one-page PDF that they have out there that gives you some tips on how to make your website friendly to the search engines and how to get it coming up in the search results. You know, really it's all about standing out, being unique, finding niche categories and keywords that you can win in. And there's a ton of tools out there too in terms of finding out what keywords people are using. Literally, if you go out to Google and you search for insulated tumbler, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of that page, there's going to be something that says people also searched for. If you take some of those might be keywords that you want to have on your website because people could be looking for it in ways that you didn't think about. So all things to think about. Check out that starter guide and it'll give you an idea. On social media, all the platforms have their own built-in analytics tools. I can go into my Facebook account. I can look at how many visitors looked at each post, how many engaged with it, how many shared it, how many liked it, all that kind of stuff. I can see based on my organic traffic and paid traffic. You know, we routinely will boost posts on Facebook. It's very reasonable to do, and you can get a lot of viewers by doing that without spending the amount of money that you have to spend on Google, let's say, for an AdWords campaign. You can spend a little bit to boost a post and see a considerable increase in the number of engagements on a post. So use those tools to take a look. Twitter has the same things. I can go in and look at which tweets got the most engagement. And then go back and tailor what you're doing based on what you see that's working and what's not. And these screens are all kind of the same thing. Just analytics on which posts are doing well, what people are viewing, what they're doing. This screen here is, I mentioned earlier, it's difficult for some people to manage multiple different social media channels. There are some tools out there like this one. This one is called Hootsuite, where I can configure my Twitter feed, my Facebook, my Instagram, my LinkedIn into one platform and do all my posts from there and see all my analytics from there. So definitely something to check out if you want to get involved in some of these social media channels, but you don't have time to manage them all separately. There's some great tools out there to do it. I use one in the charity space for the charity I'm involved with called Mfluence. It's a company out of Kansas City. Some friends of ours started. And they've got a really great tool that's similar to Hootsuite, but takes it even a step further and integrates email marketing. So what you're seeing here is a calendar. So for an entire 2-week period, all my social media posts and all my email blasts are already set up and ready to go and will go out automatically. So very powerful in terms of that. In terms of evaluating email marketing, all the platforms have these kind of tools where you can go in and see how many people opened your email, how many people clicked on it, things like that. If you have an email with one subject line and nobody opens it, and you have another with a subject line and everybody opened it, take a look at your subject lines and adjust accordingly based on what's working. Having good landing pages that people link to through your email blast is very important. Versus linking them to your homepage, link them to a page that's tailored to what the email blast was all about. A web page these days, you can set up a web page in a couple of minutes that's very unique and tailored to a specific campaign. And basically what you're trying to find out is, are they doing what you want them to do when you send out something with a call to action? Scheduling is important too. So whether it's social media or email, take a look at what posts are being engaged with at what times of the day and what days of the week. And same with your emails. In the charity space, I find a lot of our social stuff gets more engagement on Friday nights. Whereas in the business world, I see a lot of our social stuff get the most engagement on a Wednesday between, say, 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. So find out what times of day and days of the week are working for you and leverage that knowledge. Content and emails, people love when we send out an email and it has an animated GIF in it that links to a video, because it looks like you've got a real live video going in your email. And so they click on it, takes them to the video, and I know there's some new methodology coming out where people can actually embed true video in the email, but that's kind of still on the cutting edge at the moment. Make sure your calls to action are focused, and as I said before, make sure your subject lines are make people open the email or are personalized, and make sure you leverage that second subject line. It's that influence tool I talked about, the way some of those private label tools kind of outshine some of the free tools out there is, as I said, it integrates everything. So what you're seeing in this graph here is actually not just our social media, not just our email, but also our Google Analytics. In this case, our goal was to maximize donations on that Friday night. So we tailored our email campaigns and our social media posts to drive traffic to the website on Friday, and that green line with the dots that you see, that's the website traffic. And so you can see that as we maximized social posts and email, our website traffic maxed out that day, as did our donation. So that's kind of how you pull all those together and use those. As I said, sorry, I'm getting ready to go over here. We did just go over, as a matter of fact, but it's all about analyzing it, adjusting, repeating, and picking those tools out of your digital toolbox that more easily and efficiently help you engage with your customers, because as we all know, people buy from someone they know, someone they like, and someone they trust. And as I said once before, we need to ladder up and stop selling products and start selling purpose-inspired solutions. So remember that when you're looking at all these different tools. Questions, feel free to send them through the app or email them to Paul or myself, and I'll throw my contact information up there one more time. Feel free to jot that down, and if you want to copy these slides or anything else, just feel free to reach out. I apologize for the speed of that. I know we crammed a lot into an hour, but now you have a little bit of information to be dangerous in all those different categories, and you can pick the one that you need to dive into more. So thanks, everybody. Paul, thank you.
Thank you, David. That was incredible. So much great information. Really appreciate it. And David is going to be speaking at all of the Tom shows, or several of them, right?
Yeah, I think one of us may be in Ohio and Michigan, and the other one of us may be in Missouri, Kansas, Omaha. We haven't quite figured that out yet, but yeah, we'll condense. We just crammed into 60 minutes. We'll cram into 15 minutes for the Tom show.
I love magic.
But we'll be there all day too, so you can talk to us about stuff in more detail.
We did have a couple of questions. One was, what about picky clients complaining on social media? I think the questioner may mean, about someone who might spread some negativity on one's own social media site.
That is a tough one. In fact, I saw it happen again yesterday when we shared. We share a lot of as I mentioned, you don't have to create all this content yourself. You can share a lot of really good content, and we share a lot of press releases from suppliers or distributors that are using us. And I shared one yesterday from one of our great suppliers on our Facebook page, and the first comment was from somebody saying, "Hey, I've had a lot of problems with their orders lately," and it's it was Vitronic or Crown, and Dana Zezzo quickly jumped in and said, "Hey, here's my cell number. Give me a call. Let's talk about it. We'll do whatever we need to do." So he very quickly addressed it in a way that I think was a good way to do it. And I hate to see those kind of comments thrown on social media when they could have easily private messaged somebody or called them, but yeah, it can be sensitive when you see those on there, and your first instinct is to delete them, but then you're going to get more negative comments, and so you may as well address it in a way that makes them happy and do what you need to do to solve those kind of posts. That's my opinion. I'm sure there are a number of other ones as well.
Oh, great. I've also been asked if you're going to make this presentation available. Do you want them to contact you? Do you want to send it to me if I get requests? How would you like to handle that?
Yeah, either way, both. I mean, I'll send you a copy, and if somebody wants a copy, just feel free to shoot me an email at that address on the screen.
Great. I really appreciated you sharing some of the more commodity type e-commerce sites. I noticed with both of them that you use that there really seemed to be a lack of a story connected with those. Yep, there goes my phone again, sorry.
Yeah, they are. I mean, those sites certainly aren't designed to tell a story other than you can buy things here at probably the lowest price possible. So, but I think for most distributors out there that are leveraging their website as more of a portfolio or a way to show themselves off, I think it's definitely an important part of anyone's website, or should be.
You mentioned about having all of the costs up front for a good e-commerce experience, and we do live in a world where Amazon has pretty much reset the expectations and standards of what people want in an e-commerce experience. Is there anything out there for estimating embroidery stitch count or shipping costs?
There are a few. Some of the platforms out there they'll let you basically set up your own decorating matrix, so to speak. You personally can set up what you charge in terms of digitization or embroidery by the stitch or whatever it is, and then kind of layer that on top of the products. Of course, there are certainly suppliers out there who do decorating as well, and so at least in our database, when they set those products up, they're also setting up the decorating techniques that they offer. So there are a few different ways to do it, or you can do it totally from scratch as well. And it definitely becomes trickier when you don't always know the stitch count, or you don't always know the number of colors or the screens it's going to take. And so you do see some of the, like if you go place an order on 4imprint, you're going to notice that basically the embroidery cost is the same, whether it's 0 or 1 or 10,000 stitches or whatever it might be. So they've kind of simplified it and dummied it down. And I expect that some of our suppliers in this industry will ultimately go that route as well. There is no industry that has data more complex than this industry, I'm convinced, as being one who had to build a database to handle all these types of products and the decorating techniques. So I think, as we move forward, we're going to have to simplify the way some of these products are configured and ordered.
We also had a listener who asked about Amazon and the rumor that they're ready to jump into our industry and start a specialty products section. Have you heard anything on that? Have any comment about it?
Yeah, they have, and I actually went and set up a T-shirt and ordered it just to see what the experience was like. Yeah, I would trust me. I've done it on Vistaprint, and I've done it on everybody. You got to see what everybody's doing, right?
Right.
So they have a system out there now called Amazon Custom, and I think at the moment it's more focused on people like me. If I were a distributor and I wanted to put my products on Amazon and design custom T-shirts to sell or whatever it might be, it's focused around me, and I can set up pens, I can set up shirts, I can set up a variety of different products. The catalog is still fairly limited, but I think it's growing. What I don't know for sure is whether they're going to jump in full force with products that they're selling directly, coming from the suppliers. Amazon's decorating them and they're selling them direct. I have heard rumors of that effect. I haven't seen it yet, but it's certainly possible. But again, it's just like any of the other ones out there. It's still going to be focused on the commodity purchasers out there and not really being impact for our distributors that are really, providing more of a marketing service type approach to their customers. Right.
Personally, I'm a little more worried about artificial intelligence. You mentioned Alexa, and I was at a friend's house who had one with a app called 21 Questions, and she basically challenged me to think of a person living or dead from any time in history. And within about 17 questions, Alexa had it narrowed down and correctly guessed that I was thinking about Ernest Hemingway.
Oh, wow. That's scary.
When I started thinking about if Alexa did start asking, when is the event? What audience do you want to reach? How many people do you need to reach, and so on? It's really going to make it important that we become solution providers, thinkers, consultants, and marketers. So we continue to add that extra value.
No, yeah, I absolutely agree. We're just on the very forefront, I think, of, this industry has always taken a while to adopt technology solutions that are already making a mark in other industries. Having now, you saw the cover of that PPB magazine in 2000, and we're still kind of having that same discussion here 17 years later. Mm-hmm. So we're getting there, and the technology tools are finally starting to be leveraged in this industry in ways they are in other industries, and that's one that it'd be very interesting to see what direction that goes, because we've played around with it, and having all of our back end now in the Amazon cloud provides us some tools that allow us to play around with artificial intelligence. And I can't say exactly how it will impact our tools yet, but it's definitely something we're looking at.
Yeah. Well, we ran way over. I appreciate everybody who hung with us, and
definitely
to thank you again, David, and remind everyone that next month on November 29, we have the master storyteller, Bobby Lehue from Common SKU and Promo Kitchen, and Rovine Marketing as our presenter. He's always incredible. And on December 20, will be a week earlier because of the holidays. Yours truly, I'll be presenting on some planning ideas for 2018, how to plan for your best year ever. So mark those on your calendar. Once again, when you get the survey, add your PIN number. I'll submit it to PPAI for you, and look forward to speaking with all of you again next month. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.